Hi, glad you could join me for Canto 2 of the Inferno. If you haven't done Canto 1 yet, then find the video. It's labeled Canto 1. It shouldn't be that hard. Um, Canto 2. Now this begins the descent into the underworld proper. So in fact, Canto 2 is the beginning of um, the, the Inferno proper. The day was fading, and the darkening hour was releasing all the creatures on the earth from their daily tasks, and I, one man alone, was making ready to endure the battle. So at that point, he invokes the muses, and that seems odd for a couple of reasons. First of all, because it should have been at the very beginning, but it really wasn't the beginning yet because he was still in the world. You don't need a muse to tell you about the world that you live in, but you may need help from the divine uh, to learn about a world that a human doesn't belong in, that is in Inferno. Okay, so that's one reason why we have an invocation in Canto 2. Um, but another question is why the muses? Why doesn't he say God? Why doesn't he say the Holy Spirit, the Christian equivalent of the muse? Uh, we see here the yet another reason why we can consider this poem very influenced by the epic tradition. Okay, so um, following Virgil, he invokes the muses. O muses, O high genius, help me now. O memory, the mother of the muses, etymologically or mythologically, the muses were the daughters of Mnemosyne, which is the Greek name for memory. They were the daughters of Zeus and Mnemosyne. O memory that wrote down what I saw, but also remember how much Augustine had explored about the nature of memory in Book 10 uh, of the Confessions. Oh, memory that wrote down what I saw. Okay, so now he's following the tradition of the medieval apocalypse, the dream vision. He has this experience. He's taken to these other realms by divine forces, and now he writes down what he remembers from that uh, experience. Um, the first thing he recalls is Aeneas's descent to the underworld because that is his literary predecessor, and so he remembers the story as Virgil told it. And so he says to Virgil, "O poet, come to guide me. Tell me if you think my worth sufficient before you trust me to this arduous road." Okay, so he's questioning himself. You wrote about young Silvius's father, Aeneas, who went beyond with flesh corruptible with all his senses to the immortal realm. That's certainly an unusual situation, right? For somebody in flesh with all of his senses to go into the underworld. Usually you have to die to do that. He then recalls the descent of um, St. Paul to into hell. Um, I am not Paul, he says. This is line 31 of Canto 2. But why am I to go? Who allows me to? I am not Aeneas. I am not Paul. Neither I nor any man would think me worthy. So by invoking Aeneas and Paul, then he gives us the classical influences on this great poem, and at the same time the scriptural influence, the Christian and classical. So he is merging both worlds. He has a debt to both, which is why we honor Virgil above all other pagans here. Um, Virgil explains why he's there by introducing a character who is going to be central to this whole experience of Dante, to this whole work. Beatrice, 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 she is called sometimes. Um, the uh, the young lady, the young Florentine lady who um, who captivated Dante and taught him about taught him about things beyond this world. Now, in this tradition, this is very puzzling because, of course, Beatrice was not Dante's wife. Dante married a woman named Gemma and never ever referred to her in all of his writings, which may mean simply that was a private area, but. Um, the uh, uh, the whole role of Beatrice. It sounds a little weird, especially since she was so much younger than Dante. Is this a celebration of this adulterous love? Well, uh, no, because, well, for several reasons, but largely Beatrice. Let's go back to Dante's earlier poetry. Dante comes to the epic, and this is another thing that makes him a poet in the epic tradition. Certainly, we can't say this about Homer because we don't know too much about Homer. But ever since Homer, ever since people like Virgil are trying to imitate him, they dedicate their lives to being a poet and develop all genres of poetry, but only in their maturity, only at the peak of their career do they tackle the task of the epic poem. And it's the same thing with Dante. He creates a reputation for himself as a lyric poetry, and in fact, in a new kind of style. He and Guido Cavalcanti and a couple of other names that don't, well, the other Guido Guercino, but the other ones I always have to look at the list to remember. Lapo Gianni, Cino de Pistoia, Gianni Alfani. I don't know any of those guys, but Guido Cavalcanti, very well known, and he and Dante um, break new grounds in lyric poetry with something that will be called, actually, the term will appear in the Divine Comedy. It'll be Dante that coins the term, the dolce stile nuovo, the sweet new style. And there are several things several marks of this kind of poetry. One, that they wrote in the vernacular. Secondly, that they abandoned some of the more obscure poetic devices and strove for lucidity, clearness. Uh, but above all, there's a kind of a philosophical idea behind them, that it was love poetry, first of all, and so that was no different from other traditions of poetry. There was a lot of love poetry before Dante. But what made the sweet new style new, nuovo, was a kind of a notion. Um, Unlike the troubadours sang great love poetry in Provençal, France, and the Italian poets before Dante imitated that, and Dante imitated that style. But in singing about love, they took the secular poetry of love, and no, I'm not trying to say that they made it religious, but um, what they did do was, instead of celebrating uh, love as love, they celebrated it as that which makes you a better person, that which makes you worthy of the beloved. So the selfless love of the beloved elevates us, makes us better people, and so it's for that reason that he kind of romanticizes, and others, that he romanticizes this um, relationship with Beatrice, which is not a relationship as we would think of it. They don't exchange words even at the beginning, just glances. He just sees her once, and then when she's 9 years old, and then sees her many years later. And so that is our introduction to Dante. But I fear that I strayed a great distance from the text. So let's go back to that. Um, Virgil was saying that I came because I was summoned by Beatrice. He says, I was among those dead who are suspended. Oh, think of him in limbo. When a lady summoned me. Who would that lady be? Yeah, that's Beatrice. She was so blessed. Uh, the meaning of Beatrice, the Italian name was probably Bice, but it sounds like Beatrice. It sounds like a contraction of Beatrice. So the Blessed One, and so that's another reason for her image in the poem as the great inspirer. It is her blessedness that reminds me of what love is all about. This is a love poem. This is a poem about love, but it's a poem about love in the tradition of the Song of Songs, in which love is, without taking away the erotic imagery, it is definitely passionate, definitely erotic poetry. So it's not necessarily denying that, but talking about love in exactly the same kind of lesson that Augustine had to discover. Augustine had to discover that the love that had kept him from being a Christian was not bad in itself, but that he needed to understand that it was a something that led you higher, led you to something higher, and that is the lesson of the Dolce Stil Nuovo. Love makes us worthy of heaven. Um, so Dante summons Virgil, and so Virgil comes down I'm sorry, Beatrice summons Virgil, and Virgil comes down then to guide Dante so that he can be worthy of, so that he can find Beatrice. So Virgil calms his fear, um, tells him how Beatrice called him from limbo. He says, love moved me. Love is the great motive force of the universe. Uh, Dante will end his very last words in the Divine Comedy at the end of the Paradiso are about the love that moves the sun and the other stars. So the motive force in the universe is God, but God particularly as love. It's love that moves things, right? That's why emotion is mostly motion, right? Most of emotion is motion. Um, I am deeply moved. We still have um, that meaning. I am Beatrice. This is Beatrice talking to. This is the narrative within the narrative now. This is Virgil talking about Beatrice coming to him and saying, line 70, I am Beatrice who urges you to go. I come from the place I am longing to return to. Love moved me as it moves me now to speak. Um, Beatrice explains that how is it Virgil is amazed because he's there in limbo, this place of pain, and how can somebody blessed move through there? Um, she explains that Santa Lucia, Saint Lucy, had asked Beatrice to help Dante, and so Beatrice goes to Virgil, and Virgil goes to Dante, and that's why he's here. That explanation satisfies Dante, so he goes on. And we'll go on in another canto. I suppose I'll have to collapse more than one canto per presentation, but I hope we can get through this relatively quickly, but we'll do our best. Okay, so I'll see you in the next exciting episode, Canto I, as the Romans say, or Canto 3, as the Arabs put it. Okay, we'll see you then. God bless you.